2024 winner, Indy 500, Joseph Newgarden. Asterisk. Yeah.
Amber, you can take that asterisk away right now because Doug Bulls confirmed today to the press, and Marshall reported on this, that there will be 0 changes to the 2024 results. There was a little bit of talk at the start of the week that might have been justified. Let's put out this fire, too, from a day in the life. Of course, he crashed because he didn't know how to drive without a modified attenuator. Brother, I really don't think, I'm not an engineer, I think you're maybe getting 3 more miles an hour of maybe a third more of a mile an hour into turn 1 with that modified attenuator. I really don't think you're getting any more downforce as a result. So if Scott is suddenly struggling to, not drive a car when he has that much less speed, although obviously speed equals downforce, but we're going on a bird walk here. I'm sorry, boys. Let's get back to it.
I was just going to mention Marshall just literally tweeted that story out about 2024 as Josh was doing the run through there. As I just saw that as he was doing that. So that nothing is changing. The media or people all went scurrying to the museum, didn't they, over the weekend to look at last year's car, which is parked in the museum, and went, look, it's the same.
Right.
Which of course caused even more disruption. So there is how it's made, is how I understand it. There is gaps in the attenuator. What Penske have decided to do was smooth the gaps over to basically make it look better. It hasn't given them any kind of performance advantage, so they say, but air goes where air goes, and they've tried to make it not go in said holes and such like. So that's what they've done. And they've, as I said before, they've been caught with their fingers in the cookie jar trying to get away with it. I mean, there was a comment there, I think it was from Denver, saying this would be an instant disqualification in NASCAR. Yeah, it would, because NASCAR have much like Josh was saying about with Formula 1, the laser scanners and such like. I think IndyCar really does need, this is a wake-up call to their scrutineering and tech, that they need to be up on this, because was it Will Power's car went through pre-qualifying tech first, it was spotted, but nothing was said. And then once Joseph Newgarden's car came through, then we had the rumblings and they were moved and etc. And they went on from there. So surely that would have been, it's wrong, throw it out. You need to go and change that and come back and try again, much like we see with NASCAR when they have multiple chances to get through tech before they're put to the back of the field, long pit lane penalties at the start of the races, whatever, etc. So the scrutineering stuff really needs to be tidied up. I mean, where we go from, we'll never speak of an attenuator again here until maybe this time next year, when of course this story will come back up again, or when we're next on oval, which I believe is Gateway, isn't it? I think the next oval in a few weeks' time. So massive scrutineering changes need to be done in the paddock, because this has caused ructions and a huge mess.
Yeah, I agree with. Oh, go on, Kobe. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Matt. Gateway is going to be coming up in a few weeks' time. We just talked about it recently on Grid Tonight. I think it might have been last week when they announced that Gateway is going to be on the night of Father's Day in prime time on Fox. So a big opportunity for IndyCar there to be in front of a large audience once you've gotten all your Father's Day plans out of the way. And I also wanted to touch on Scott McLaughlin as well. And IndyCar, in the initial press release when they announced the penalties, moving Newgarden and Power to the back of the grid, they said despite, the hard crash McLaughlin had, IndyCar still was able to look at his attenuator, and they were able to see that it was not modified in any way. So it was just the number 2 and the number 12 cars that had the modified attenuators, while Scott McLaughlin's was perfectly legal. So he didn't do anything wrong in that instance. But given all the conflicts of interest, and stuff like that, it seems like Penske Entertainment, the group that owns the IndyCar series in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, they're strongly looking at implementing an independent governing body for IndyCar, and I think that will go a long way, into squashing some of this conflict of interest. Talking, people are being like, why is this team being treated differently than us and all that? Why are they allowed to get away with this for this long? And I think that would be a really good thing. And it was really interesting because earlier, in the week, it was like that this was something that we're thinking about well into the future. And now, after today, it seems like that this is something that IndyCar is, trying to do as soon as possible. And I think they need to do that. So I'm glad that they're moving in that direction. And as I said, on Monday night, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a mechanic, so I don't understand all of this wonderful technical stuff that Bozy, understands better than we all do. And I'm going to take their word for it that Team Penske did not really gain much of an advantage, by modifying this. And that's much better, than using push to pass when you weren't allowed to. But, still, the optics, still haven't really looked good. But given, what we've heard from IndyCar president Doug Bowles and then, Roger Penske doing that sit-down interview on Fox Sports with Jamie Little just a short while ago that was published online, I think that it's a step in the right direction, but we all know this story is still not going to be going away anytime soon.
Yeah, first of all, we got to give a huge tip of the cap to Bozy, who, has had a long road racing history, has been the crew chief for Vassar Sullivan Racing and been behind that Lexus program for years, but is as talented with a pen as he is with a gear. So he's been really, really fun to kind of dive in and write. Would love to see that guy more in IndyCar. But going into this actual breakdown of technical inspection, gentlemen, two things really come to mind for me where, number one, yes, this is by and large a spec series, but there is so much that is still very much up for development, most of that being within the suspension side of things. And if I am under the category of a technical inspector, I would be more focused on making sure that all of those open development parts of the car, when they're coming through tech, are within the reasonable amounts of adjustment and someone isn't totally bringing something illegal in that area. That being said, I broke this down a little bit yesterday on Outlet Media, but the attenuator itself is what I like to call a Lego part. Not only does it serve as a safety feature to absorb energy, but if we have a Nashville 22 type scenario, right, where someone ramps up against someone and just totally wipes out the rear wing, you are able to fairly easily, like a front wing, take that off and put it back on. So it is designed by nature to have that little bit of wiggle room. So it doesn't take a blowtorch and some insane elbow grease to jam that thing in there if you need to replace it during a pit stop. So by design, that wiggle room should always be there, regardless of open wheeler type, regardless of what it is doing. But when you are so focused, going back to the tech inspectors, when there are so many things that can be modified that you need to focus on, I feel like it is a little bit understandable to understand or to get why you could look at the car and at an immediate glance why there isn't anything wrong with the car, because it took me a couple of looks and seeing what was going on and before having it thoroughly explained to me, guys, knowing what I was supposed to be looking at, what was supposed to be wrong.
We filmed a feature on the touchscreen for the pre-show coming up, and it took me a few minutes to go, where is it? And I've been looking at it for a week. I'm like, it's hard
it's
to do.
only IndyCar where we talk about this. No other single-seater championship that I am aware of runs one, let alone get talked about like it does. When Kyle Larson had his crash on Friday, it was, he's been saved by the attenuator because he backed it, it saved a lot of the damage.
Marcus Armstrong, Saturday morning, exact same.
Yeah, that too. Mm-hmm.
So maybe, do you reckon that could have also been a factor of it? The fact is that we saw the other teams getting zoomed in so much because we had so many identical accidents. And then as soon as Scott McLaughlin's goes, everyone sees that it's just a little bit different. And then the other teams go up and down looking at the other cars and go, oh, yeah, that is different to us, isn't it?
I really do think it comes down to just a single I think it just comes down to, if anything, if this is true, Chip Ganassi may be seeing that something was wrong with that car and potentially pointing that out to IndyCar techs. One more thing really, really quickly as I'm running around here. Ben Schneider also mentioning these are things that have just already happened, right? You can't just take away some things that have already happened unless you're, of course, Lance Armstrong. But the Astros 2017 World Series, Barry Bonds with the home run record. Those are things that have been bricked together moment by moment, right? That's not something you can simply erase from history, right? So as controversial as it is, one, we don't really know what the performance gain is genuinely, although it's clearly enough to be marginal. But as Ben says, taking a win 45 days in the past was messy enough. I don't think you want to open the can of worms there. Yes, although last thing, and we can start landing this plane on the IndyCar side of things tonight. Drivers are upset. Fans are upset. Team owners are upset. There is one big thing that Marshall Pruitt mentioned as well on Racer that we have not mentioned. And that is one of the OEMs that has been, I don't want to say threatening, but mentioning the possibility of departing IndyCar following the new regs. HRC, if there are moments that Honda will look at for reasons to leave, it is going to be St. Pete. It's going to be Long Beach last year when they got caught again doing it and finally had that taken away. And it's going to be right now. If you want to not just keep your current OEMs, but keep hunting for that sacred third OEM, third engine supplier that we have spent over 10 years now trying to find after Lotus had a dog water car, these are the things that are going to keep us as a series going nowhere. Not just in the fact of fairness, but in us growing. And that is the bottom line for me.
There is an interesting thing when it comes to Honda. They are just about getting back into MotoGP with their HRC program with the engine developers. The bike is now just coming back into it. And Zarco was an example when he won. He was on a Honda and he was able to get that gap away from the rest of the field, including Mark, because it had the pace. So they're better in Indy. They're better now at MotoGP, whether they seriously were looking like they're going to pull out after they lost Repsol. Honda is now secure in Formula One. There's talks of them joining the One Endurance Championship if Acura actually want to take that over. So there's not really a sort of interest. If it fails in IndyCar, they can just go, all right, fine, we'll go elsewhere when we're winning championships.
What HRC is genuinely talking about in Torrance right now is NASCAR is only getting bigger once again. They've been teasing at the possibility of that forever. And you are in, as John Doonan puts it, the platinum age now of sports car racing, and Acura heavily involved, but still zero plans of going over to jumping the Atlantic and doing the 24 hours of Le Mans and doing the World Endurance Championship. Something is going to have to give on the four-wheel side, and if it does, it's going to be IndyCar to at least some extent. Either half of the team suddenly are engineless, or the program is cut altogether if they want to go try doing either.
They did it again at Long Beach, yeah. There's a couple of things that brew up, don't they, as well? But I don't want to mess this here. I think that should be the title of this Tonight Show as well. Denver says that independent board should be all teams in IndyCar, team census involved with a view of IndyCar in mind. Well, yes, but that's too close to what we had with FOTA, the Formula One Teams Association.
If you have people from the teams involved in an independent board, it's not independent.
No, F1 has showed us how bad that can go when we nearly had the breakaway series.
And some more food for thought. Team got fined $200,000. Where is that money going? In one pocket, out one pocket, into the other? Where?
Well, indeed, yeah. There is that, isn't there? You know, and I'll mention it yet again because every time we talk about Roger Penske and IndyCar, we were so excited about when this all came out however many years ago. Oh my goodness, here we go with IndyCar. As you mentioned, Jackson, it's gone nowhere. Now we've had all this again. Roger is part owner in Ilmore, who build the engines for his cars and half the field for Chevrolet.
Which is why we are not afraid about Chevy leaving, audience.
Yeah, indeed. It is bad times in the IndyCar paddock, really is.
I can tell you exactly where that money is going. It is going from the American account to the Swiss account of Roger Penske. Just straight over.
Offshore.
Yeah, just straight into transfer as well. And it's poacher turned gamekeeper while still poaching.